Gentlemen, good to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. How you doing?
You know, it's interesting, Noah, because I always feel like that script to screen journey is always interesting. And I mean, maybe you can answer this differently compared to just a regular season of, The Chosen or The Last Supper. Well, what is that script to screen journey like for you? Like reading this and actually seeing it come to life and filming it, so to speak.
Whoa, it's interesting that you asked that because I think this season, more than any other, it was difficult to understand how it was all going to unfold from the script. I read through the scripts. I was in New York doing a few interviews. I couldn't go to bed. It was 11 p.m. maybe. And I read like 5 of the episodes in a row. I just couldn't stop. It is very bingeable in that way because it all takes place only during 1 week. But even still, like, for instance, we start with a triumphal entry walking into the city of Jerusalem, everyone waving palm fronds and chanting and singing. And I didn't quite understand what that was going to feel like. And then you arrive, and we had 600 people join us there, background fans of the show. And before we had even approached the gates, we couldn't even really see them. We could hear the chanting and the singing, and it felt really overwhelming. And by the time we got there, they were laying their garments down for us to step over. Super humbling. And I was honestly shocked. And that is how I felt about the whole season. Even The Last Supper, we all have these ideas in our head that aren't all that helpful when you're going to then film the show and make it anew. But when we stepped into our room and our interpretation of The Last Supper, it felt like, ooh, we are broaching new territory here. We're
Yes.
stepping into the unknown.
Well, that's a
Oh,
really
yeah.
good segue. Reza, it's good to see you, by the way.
Hey.
I kind of wanted to ask you too, because like Noah kind of, painted the picture a little bit, but when you do something like this, where the scale is so massive and there's so many people involved and the scale is big and the conversations interest me, right? Like the conversations you're having with your cast members, conversations you're having with Dallas, with everyone else. Are there a lot of conversations? Are there not as many as you think there are in terms of like what's going to be filmed and everything? Or they happen before you go to production. Like I'm curious about that. The conversation.
Well, that's a good question, actually. I was going to kind of follow up on Noah's remark that I think what's interesting is it's like, the script is sort of the map, and there's like, it's a conscious idea of the narrative. I think especially this season with the level of like unknown that the actual story carries, and also the feelings that are very heightened, but also not entirely universal. They're very personal to each of the disciples. It was very interesting to experience that come to life, because suddenly, sometimes there's certain scenes where you kind of have an idea of where it's going. With this, because every disciple and every character in the story has almost like built things up for this grand moment with like their entire narrative and point of view. I always say I like nonverbal, I like the unconscious experience of the making of the art. So I like surrendering and just seeing what unravels. And I think I love that Dallas also gives a space where he really trusts the actors to just, go with instincts and intuition, and then he tweaks, and it's been such a blessing to see that, because there are certain scenes where like the disciples come together and they're coming and having these conversations about what is going to happen. There's no way to plan that from the script. Everyone's bringing unique things, from the way they're interacting with the set, to even in The Last Supper, the way they're eating their food or playing with a little thing. I think that's the stuff that I love, that gives, and the spaces in between. It's like jazz, it gives a touch that makes it much more human.
Absolutely.
Than just reading something.
I have one more question for each of you before we wrap up super quick. Noah, my question for you is, so much happens before you go to camera on a season of The Chosen, right? There's like Reza just said, I mean, you guys are having this ping pong match of your answers. They feed into each other. It's excellent. Like there's so much that kind of happens, right? The conversation. So from an acting storyteller perspective, you can see there's two journeys, right? Before filming The Chosen and after filming The Chosen, or is it one big journey with multiple steps in between for you?
Oh, I mean, you kind of can't delineate, because, for instance, I'll just say when you're prepping a season and then you get there, there's a lot of, first of all, just being really familiar with the script and what that they do such a good job of laying it out for us. And then our job really is to sort of, pick it up and make sure we carry it to the finish line. And so you're prepping it. For me, I sit in my room alone in the dark and I let my imagination kind of run wild and take me to these places. But we've now been doing this show for years. And so a lot of that preparation has already happened. And then we show up and it really does feel like what Reza was saying. It feels like creation in the moment.
Yes.
We show up and you're sort of sensing, okay, what is everyone bringing to this? What does even the rehearsal feel like? How is it going to feel? And even sometimes halfway through the day, someone will bring something new to the table and you go, oh, and a new spark of life happens. So that feeling is constantly going on the show.
Yeah. Reza, last question for a wrap up. A TV show or film is mainly made for one person in mind, and that is the audience. And I want to know, for your perspective, when do you start really thinking about the audience? Like, are you ever conscious of the audience, you know, watching The Chosen while you're in production, making it? Or do you kind of talk about that a little bit more once you wrap? Is it a before process? When do you start as a storyteller thinking about the audience, so to speak?
It's a very good question as well. I think it's as an actor, subjectively at least, I feel like my duty is only to bring you know, life into the character, and then leave the rest alone to Dallas and the specialists who run the narrative of the story. And then I think other people have headaches of trying to figure out how it's going to land for the audience in terms of the narrative itself. But when it comes to the actual audience, in terms of like immersion in it, I mean, I feel like, you know, we call it the chosen family, and everybody's so involved, and at every step, every day, you know, you get conversations from, I wouldn't say it's audience, because it's the chosen family, and they're just like constantly like looking out for you. Some of them are on set. You know, this year we had 600 in the grand entry, so they're always palpably there, and it feels less of a sort of, in this show particularly, it feels less of a like, you know, actor, you know, filmmaker and audience, and it's more like a group family experience where we're all co-creating it, because if I'm touched by it, and then the people who watch are touched by it, but they're also in it, and then, you know, everyone's kind of constantly in this kind of weird circle where we're co-creating, I suppose.
I'm a filmmaker, so these were the questions come from. These are the things I always think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
love it.
Yeah, The Chosen, The Last Supper, Part 1, March 28th. Gentlemen, it was an honor and privilege to speak with you both. Thank you so much for your time.
Great talking with you.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.